One of the most respected political scientists in the United States sat down for an interview in the last 24 hours and said a sentence that should have been the lead story on every major news network in this country. He said, quote, "Trump has doomed us. Iran will destroy the presidency. He is not a partisan. He is not a pundit. He is not a cable news commentator paid to generate outrage. He is Robert Pape. He has advised American military commanders. He has briefed the Pentagon. He is the author of the foundational academic work on the strategy of suicide terrorism, on coercive air power, on the dynamics of regime collapse." And what he is saying, calmly, without drama, with the methodical precision of a man who has spent 40 years studying exactly this kind of situation, is that what is happening right now between the United States and Iran is not a standoff, not a negotiation, not a temporary escalation. It is the end of an American presidency. And worse than that, it is the moment a mid sized regional power in the Middle East looked at the most powerful military in human history and figured out it could win. I want to walk you through what Pape actually said. Because once you understand the framework he is laying out, you will not look at the ceasefire extensions, the truth social ultimatums, the carrier deployments, the diplomatic back and forth the same way again. You will see the structure underneath. And the structure underneath is terrifying. Let me start with the sentence that matters most. Pape said that Iran has now learned something they did not know 8 weeks ago. Not a material gain, not a weapon system, not a tactical victory, an epistemological shift, a new piece of knowledge. And the new knowledge is this: they can beat America, not survive America, not outlast America, not negotiate with America, beat America. That distinction is the entire story. And almost nobody in mainstream coverage is drawing it. Because for 40 years, the working assumption inside the Iranian regime and inside every mid sized power that has thought about challenging the United States has been that a direct confrontation with American military power ends in one way: you lose. You might extract concessions on the way down, you might inflict damage, you might make it politically costly, but in the final accounting, you lose. That assumption was the invisible architecture holding the post Cold War international order in place. It was the reason Iran operated through proxies instead of direct confrontation. The reason North Korea bluffed but never fired. The reason China built a navy but has not yet used it. The assumption of American military supremacy was the load bearing wall of the entire global system. Pape is saying that wall just cracked because over the last 8 weeks, Iran has done something no one expected. They have absorbed American airstrikes. They have absorbed the degradation of their air force, their navy, their drone infrastructure, their senior leadership. They have watched their cities get hit. And instead of collapsing, instead of suing for peace on American terms, instead of behaving the way the Pentagon playbook said they would behave, they are still here. They are still coordinating. They are still launching attacks. They are still closing the Strait of Hormuz. They are still refusing to show up to peace talks. They are still pulling off ship seizures and drone strikes and publicly parading missiles with American city names painted on them. That last detail I want to sit with for a moment because it is not noise. When a state parades missiles in public with the names of American cities painted on the fuselage, Washington, New York, Los Angeles, it is not threatening to strike those cities. Everyone involved knows those missiles cannot reach American soil. The signal is not about range. The signal is about intent. The signal is we are now the kind of regime that publicly names American cities as targets. We have crossed a psychological threshold that puts us in the same category as North Korea, Russia, China. We are no longer a regional actor. We are a global one. And we know something about the American president that he does not yet know about himself. That is what Pape means when he says Iran has new knowledge. Iran looked at Donald Trump, the commander in chief of the most powerful military on the planet, and they figured out that he does not actually want to fight. He wants to declare victory. He wants the fig leaf. He wants the photo op where he comes back from the negotiating table and tells the American people he won, he got the deal, Iran is defanged, everyone can move on, and Iran has decided deliberately, strategically, with full awareness of the consequences, that they are not going to give him that. They are not going to hand him a cover story. They are not going to provide the fig leaf. They are going to drag this out. They are going to escalate in calibrated, controlled, humiliating increments. They are going to let the ceasefire break and break and break again. They are going to seize ships. They are going to close the strait. They are going to fire at American warships. They are going to do just enough to keep the crisis alive, to keep oil prices elevated, to keep the American economy under pressure, to keep the headlines bleeding. And they are going to do this, according to Pape, for one very specific reason: not to win territory, not to win concessions, not even to protect their nuclear program. They are going to do this to wreck Donald Trump's presidency. Let me say that again because it is the most important sentence in this entire episode. Iran, the Islamic Republic, the regime in Tehran, the IRGC leadership operating from underground bunkers, that has made a strategic decision that the single most valuable outcome they can extract from this entire confrontation is the personal, political, and historical destruction of the American president, not a policy win, not a regional realignment, the humiliation of one man. And through him, the humiliation of the United States. Pepe's argument is that they want to do this worse than the Democrats want to do it. And when you stop and really think about that sentence, it is a sentence that should freeze the room. Because what it means is that the domestic political opposition to Donald Trump in the United States, the party that has spent 10 years trying to end his political career, is not actually his most dangerous adversary right now. His most dangerous adversary is a foreign power that has decided his destruction is worth more to them than any deal he could offer. And the reason they think it is worth more is the second thing Pop said that almost nobody is covering. If Iran succeeds in breaking Trump's presidency, if this crisis drags into the fall and the economy cracks and oil prices surge and the political environment collapses, Iran does not just humiliate one president. They establish themselves permanently as a fourth center of the world power. Think about what that phrase means. For 35 years, the international system has been structured around a small number of centers of power: the United States, China, Russia. That is it. Every other country, every European state, every Gulf monarchy, every Latin American economy operates inside the gravitational pull of those three centers. To become a fourth center is not to be a regional player, it is to be a pole, a gravitational force that other countries organize themselves around. It is the status that Iran's clerical leadership has dreamed about for 45 years, since the revolution, and has never been able to achieve. And Pape is saying that the path to that status runs directly through the political corpse of the Trump presidency. Because if Iran can demonstrate that they are capable of destroying an American president, not militarily, but politically, through attrition, through economic pressure, through the systematic humiliation of his attempts to negotiate, then every regime in the Gulf starts to recalculate. Every autocrat in the region starts to kowtow. The United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states that have historically relied on American security guarantees, suddenly look at Iran and think, if they could do that to Washington, what can they do to us? And they start to hedge. They start to accommodate. They start to tilt. That is how world orders shift. Not through battles, through perceptions, through the quiet recalculations that happen inside the heads of a few hundred decision makers in a handful of capitals, when they realize that the assumptions they have been operating under for a generation no longer hold. This is not speculation. Pape is not the only serious person saying it. Neil Ferguson, the historian, the Kissinger biographer, one of the most influential voices in the conservative intellectual establishment, a man who 6 weeks ago was still broadly bullish on American deterrence, published a thread yesterday that walked through exactly the same logic. Iran has survived regime change. Iran has discovered that closing the Strait of Hormuz is, in the words of a Russian analyst Ferguson quoted, an economic nuclear weapon that, unlike an actual nuke, you can actually use. Ferguson's prediction, that Trump will not deploy ground forces, that there will be more negotiations, more bombing, a drawn out compromise that takes far longer than markets currently price in, is the same prediction Pape is making. The same structure, the same conclusion. When two serious analysts from completely different intellectual traditions arrive at the same conclusion independently, you are no longer looking at a theory. You are looking at consensus forming in real time. So let me ask you the question the mainstream media will not ask. What happens to your life if they are right? Because this is where the story stops being abstract. This is where the geopolitics lands on your kitchen table. If Iran is running the strategy Papa and Ferguson describe, prolonged calibrated escalation designed to wreck a presidency rather than win a war, the economic consequences compound. Every week, the Strait of Hormuz stays partially closed. Insurance premiums on Gulf shipping rise. Every week, oil prices stay elevated. The inflation progress of the last 2 years gets eroded. Every week, the crisis extends. The Federal Reserve loses flexibility on interest rates. Every month, this drags on. The probability of a recession that starts in energy and spreads through consumer spending climbs. By the time the November election cycle begins in earnest, you could be looking at an American economy that has absorbed a sustained energy shock on top of tariff pressures, housing affordability strain, and a labor market already showing soft underbelly data. That is not speculation either. That is the scenario analysis that private investment banks are quietly circulating to institutional clients right now. They are not publishing it on the front page of their research notes. They are writing it in the memos that go to pension fund managers and sovereign wealth funds, the people who have to actually plan for this. And the central case in those memos is not war. The central case is exactly what Pape is describing, a slow motion strategic humiliation of the United States that produces a cascading economic and political crisis over the next 6 to 9 months. Now, here's the question that cuts deeper. If Iran is right that they can wreck the presidency, what does Trump do about it? Because this is the trap Pepe keeps returning to. Trump has, at this moment, effectively three choices. Option one, take the deal. Negotiate something that looks like a win, even if it is a fig leaf, and sell it to the American public as victory. The problem with option one is that Iran has just signaled very clearly that they will not provide the fig leaf. They did not show up to the Islamabad talks. They seized a ship the night before. They are publicly humiliating the American negotiating team. There is no deal on offer that Trump can credibly call a win. Option two, walk away. Keep the blockade in place. Let the sanctions tighten. Leave Iran slowly choking. This is the plan former senior Trump official Joe Kent has floated, and it has the advantage of avoiding direct military escalation. The problem Pape identifies with this option is that it does not actually stop the strategic trajectory. Iran still keeps the strait as a lever. Iran still continues enriching uranium. Iran still, over the course of months or years, works on the Gulf monarchies internally, destabilizing them from within. The containment strategy that worked on Iraq does not work on Iran, because Iran is structurally different, older, more coherent, with deeper cultural penetration across the region. Walking away does not freeze the problem, it just slows the clock. Option 3, full escalation. Execute the ultimatum, take out the power plants and the bridges, break the regime's capacity to continue. The problem with option 3 is that it risks exactly what the regime wants: a full-scale crisis in the Gulf, an oil price shock that hits the American economy directly, global diplomatic backlash, and a humanitarian disaster that turns the 90 million Iranians who currently want the regime gone into 90 million Iranians who blame America for destroying their country. Every door leads into a trap. And that is what Pape means when he says Trump has lost control. Not that he has lost a battle, that he has lost the initiative. Every move he makes now is a response to a move Iran has already made. Every ultimatum he issues, Iran has already calculated how to absorb without capitulating. Every deadline he sets, Iran has already decided to let expire. The most powerful military in the world is being paced strategically by a regime whose senior leadership is operating from a concrete bunker 12 feet underground. I want to step back and give you the historical frame because this moment has precedent, and the precedent is worth studying. In 1979, during the Iran hostage crisis, a weakened regime in Tehran held 52 American diplomats captive for 444 days. The crisis did not end in military victory. It ended in the political destruction of President Jimmy Carter. Carter went into that crisis with approval ratings around 60%. He came out with his presidency in ruins. His re-election campaign collapsed. Ronald Reagan won the 1980 election by a landslide. And the American public internalized, for a generation, the lesson that Iran was the regime that broke an American president. That lesson has been quietly studied inside the Islamic Republic for 45 years. Every senior figure in the current IRGC leadership was a young man during the hostage crisis. They know exactly what that episode did. They know exactly how it ended. And they know something the Carter-era regime did not know. They know the United States is more politically divided now, more economically vulnerable now, and more institutionally strained now than at any point in the last half century. If you are sitting in a bunker in Tehran, calculating your options, and the history of your regime's one successful asymmetric victory over the United States involved breaking a president rather than winning a war, that history is not an abstract reference, it is a playbook, and the playbook is being executed. Pepe closed his interview with a sentence I want to leave you with. He said that most Americans do not understand what is happening right now, but the people in the White House do. He said he is not hearing anyone in mainstream coverage say out loud that Iran has an active strategic interest in wrecking the presidency, but he is saying it. Neil Ferguson is saying it. The people Pepe talks to in private, the people inside government, the people who have been studying this for decades, they are saying it. The people around you are watching cable news segments about ceasefire extensions and carrier deployments and thinking this is a story about military posturing. They are missing the actual story. The actual story is that a foreign power has made a strategic decision to destroy an American presidency, and the mechanisms by which they intend to do it are already in motion. And every week that passes without Americans understanding what is happening is a week that strategy compounds. This is the coverage that matters. This is the analysis the mainstream will not give you. And we are going to be here for every chapter of what comes next. One question to leave you with: if Pape is right and Iran's actual goal is to break the presidency rather than win the war, what realistically can Trump do to stop them? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one.